Donald Trump's selection for Surgeon General, Casey Means, has set off a full-blown civil war inside the MAGA movement, and I have to tell you that I love it. Now, the reason this is happening is not because Casey Means believes raw milk is a miracle cure or that your body is a sort of radio antenna to God. That stuff, bizarre as it is, actually fits right in. The outrage is that Casey Means isn't fringe enough. She's been vaccinated. She's not screaming about vaccine autism conspiracies. And for the hardcore anti-vaxxer Trump that Trump helped normalize, it's a betrayal. She's nowhere near radical enough. And the reaction from some wings of MAGA has been immediate and it's been vicious, and they are calling her a Manchurian asset. It's wild when you get a conspiracy theorist nominated for a role, and then conflicting conspiracy theorists come out of the woodwork and go, no, she's terrible for all these reasons. Some are accusing Robert F. Kennedy Jr. of secretly working for Big Pharma, saying Trump was duped by the deep state and got tricked by RFK, working for Big Pharma to bring in Casey Means. And it's not like this is a political disagreement. It's sort of like a gang warfare among people who no longer know what's real. They only know who's on my team. What are the things I'm supposed to say to virtue signal which team I'm on? And this is what happens when the machinery of truth collapses. In my book, I talk about not the disagreement over what the facts are, but the incomprehension around what sort of statement even qualifies as a statement of fact. And we have a machinery of truth that is completely collapsed. You look at social media, for-profit news, unregulated influencer grifts, and they have trained people, some of them have trained people, to distrust anything communal. Science consensus, journalism, public institutions, we've got to distrust all of it. And instead, they elevate gossip that gets passed around their peer groups, Facebook groups, and the like. We've gone, unfortunately, from being a country that used to argue about policy to one that has adults yelling taunts about vitamins on TikTok. And our national epistemology of sorts has been completely shattered and destroyed. Why look at an FDA label when you've got a podcast guest telling you, I've got a longevity elixir with turmeric and cordyceps spores and a coupon code? And this is not only a MAGA problem, it's a systemic failure, because for decades, the FDA and the DOJ have kind of let the whole supplement industry run wild in a legal gray area, which we've talked about before. You've got real drug makers strictly regulated about what they can say on labels and how manufacture happens. And then separately, you've got this entire sort of gray area space lacking regulation, without oversight, without consequences, without science, just kind of like hashtags and influencer recommendations. And unfortunately, Americans who have been increasingly priced out of a broken healthcare system fall for it because they're desperate for, I've got the one strange hack, and they prefer that rather than going bankrupt over a doctor's visit in a country that has this thing called medical bankruptcy, which you don't see almost anywhere else. Now, I think it's also important to consider that when a broken healthcare system makes actual medical care inaccessible or unaffordable, it's natural that the free market would come in and fill the vacuum with snake oil. And because this garbage isn't technically against the law, thanks to these regulatory loopholes that have been carved out by supplement lobbyists, there's really no filter left between this is an evidence-based treatment and this is a delusion. And there's a bunch of different stuff in between. So one problem is people don't even realize that they're being marketed to. It's really not a marketplace of ideas. It's more like a flea market of false hope that's being used to target people who are trying to figure out what to do in this broken healthcare system. So it's become a profitable idiocracy. It's propped up by legal loopholes. It's weaponized by low-grade cyber war and all of it. And it's a sort of tragedy that our enemies didn't even need tanks. They just had to inject chaos. We invited it in and we bought using the promo code. And this is how we end up eating ourselves alive. Now we get back to the Casey Means thing. You know, it's not uncommon in the MAGA space that they become victims of the monster that they created. You feed people lies for a decade, and eventually they demand purer lies. The fringe becomes mainstream, conspiracies become mainstream, and suddenly you've got a Surgeon General nominee, Casey Means, who's not being attacked for saying COVID was a Darwinian moment. She's being attacked because she didn't go further. She's not wacky enough for some. And there used to be kind of like a basic social contract. We could disagree about the solutions, but we're at least arguing about the same problem. That there was a period during which that was the case. That's gone. Because today Americans don't just disagree on politics, they disagree about reality. Whether vaccines even work, whether the Surgeon General should be a licensed doctor, whether the earth is flat. It just all sort of winds up kind of in the same space. And once we lose this shared sense of reality, democracy becomes impossible. I've talked about this in the context of Plato's predictions that there are problems with democracy that include that eventually uninformed people elect terrible politicians. We've talked about it in the context of the medical space and vaccines and all of this other stuff. You really can't negotiate with, compromise with, or find a middle ground with delusional hallucinations. You just can't. Once you convince people that medicine is a scam and facts are just a plot and science is tyranny, how do you negotiate with that? And so what we have now is a cult, and eventually the cult turns on its own. And as wacky as it was for Trump to say, we're going to replace Dr. Jeanette Neshawat, who, by the way, also had no business being Surgeon General, with Casey Means, who really has no business being Surgeon General, you then have this other group that comes in and goes, it's not that she's too crazy. She's not crazy enough. And now you've got a mini MAGA civil war over exactly that. After researching, writing, refining, The Echo Machine, my book, is finally out. This is not just a book about how American politics got so broken. It's also about what's happening right now and what we can still do to stop things from getting worse. Trump's been back in power. The results have been even more catastrophic than many feared, with targeting of political opponents and gutting democratic institutions, laying the groundwork to even further consolidate power. But the thing is that none of this is inevitable. The same forces that brought us here can be countered if we understand how they work and what to do about them. And that's what the Echo Machine is all about. Some say that without corporate media backing, books like this can't succeed. I think we can prove them wrong. You can get the Echo Machine right now at davidpakman.com/echo on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Audible, Kindle, or by calling any local bookstore and asking them to order it. This book is more important than ever. If you care about what happens next, and I do, check out the Echo Machine today at davidpakman.com/echo.